Welcome back. South Africa is facing a significant unemployment problem that puts the country's security in danger with a possible prospect of a youth uprising. There is also a challenge of a stagnant economy that's not in a position to absorb a workforce. But then again, the rise of artificial intelligence is reshaping industries and economies globally with untapped potential to create the much needed jobs. Now, to help us better understand how South African youth can tap into the AI sphere, we're now joined by Boston City Campus Director, Dr. Deonita Damons. Dr. Damons, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'm excited to have this conversation because as bleak as South Africa's growing unemployment rate is among the youth and remains quite a key concern, it is quite exciting to know that, insert artificial intelligence and we may be able to somewhat close that gap. How can we do so using AI?
Good evening, Martha, and good evening to your viewers, and thank you for having me. And yes, the question is, how will AI impact on employment and unemployment? And like you said, it is inevitable that artificial intelligence has the potential to reshape labor markets profoundly. The raging debate, however, is whether AI will be the cause of job losses or the alchemist of new and fresh career and employment opportunities. How we then position ourselves as a country and a nation will determine whether AI will be a blessing or a curse. And that all boils down to how prepared is our workforce and our youth in terms of the AI revolution and whether we can actually benefit from the potential that AI brings to our unemployment rate and to our workforce as a general. So it goes back to what it is that we can do as civil society in preparing ourselves for this AI revolution and taking cognizance of the fact that we can actually reap tremendous benefit if our youth can tap into AI potential opportunities as well.
And you do mention that there are those fears as well that with the insert of AI as well, it is potentially going to take away some jobs that may become redundant as well. But for the other side of the spectrum where it's not going to be a curse but perhaps a blessing, where would you say we are? How ready are we? Because you're saying, Dr. Damons, it will depend on how ready our youth in South Africa will be to be able to make use of AI to create jobs for themselves as well. Would you say that we are in a position where we have a tech-savvy youth who has access to that kind of information as well?
I think we face a number of systemic challenges in where we have a divided equality of readiness for AI, in the sense that there are some youth that were privileged enough to be exposed to AI development from a very young age, and therefore they are ready to step into the AI world, whereas we have the majority of our youth that unfortunately, because of circumstances and the environment, were not able to get AI ready, that now has to do a catch-up session in terms of getting ready. But I do think that we sometimes, we don't appreciate the fact that our youth are resilient and our youth are growing up with AI as a norm. And for them, AI is what they know. They don't see it as something new. It is us, the older generation, that has to understand how AI works. But it is dependent on where you come from and whether you are AI ready. And that goes back to our educational institutions and whether they are gearing our youth to become ready for AI. And in that aspect, I see government putting in legislation and making the environment conducive. But it still depends on institutions of learning to make sure that the graduates they put out there, the learners they put into their system, become AI ready. Otherwise, we will never reach a level of optimum AI readiness to enter the AI revolution.
And Dr. Damons, would you say that we should perhaps taking this a step further back even, at a school level as well? Should learners be getting more advice on AI-centered careers as opposed to traditional careers? Because nowadays we're seeing that professionals that are historically esteemed, like medicine, won't necessarily guarantee you a job. Now, not to deter anyone who wants to go into medicine, of course, which is a life-saving career as well, but should learners now be focusing more on professions and careers that will involve AI?
Yes, and I think that's where we step into as a broader society, in the fact that our educators should also be AI savvy, because you cannot expect an educator to teach a new person coming into the school space of AI if they have not been exposed to AI. So the situation goes broader than just the new people coming into the system. It goes to everyone within the ecosystem of education, and ensuring that the person becomes ready or AI ready for the future. So I know that government has put in place policies and curricula where they start teaching coding from a young age, primary school age. But it's not just up to government, it's up to private and civil society to make sure that our youth come out AI ready, because otherwise, as a nation, for future generations, we are left behind. And one of the important things that education institutions or institutions of learning should do is incorporate AI into their studies, incorporate AI into their normal teaching of learning, so that when the graduate leaves and goes into the world of work, they are AI ready.
And getting them AI ready will be very important. Now, what advice would you give to a learner who's perhaps listening to our conversation saying, you know, I want to be able to be a part of this industrial revolution, this technological revolution, being a part of this digital era, but what do I study? What are AI-related or aligned kind of careers?
Well, that is very broad, because AI is cross-sectoral. It cross borders all functions of society, or job functions, or careers. So it's very broad. But I think it is about that individual getting access to information in terms of what are the new career opportunities. Because sometimes we are stifled to thinking that there's a norm in terms of where we want to go to. And if you look at new career opportunities coming up in terms of content creation, in terms of publication, those are all AI driven. So it is up to an individual to look at what is in the future, but it's also up to us as institutions of learning to make sure that we make this information available to individuals to know that what you're studying now might not be relevant in 10 years from now. So let us as institutions of learning give you something that we think will be relevant in 10 years from now, so that you can start equipping yourself and continuously learn and evolve as the world of AI grow and evolve as well.
And added to, you know, institutions and institutions of higher learning as well would also be the private sector. Now, we've also been seeing quite a bit of public-private partnerships that are happening. Last year, Microsoft announced that it would be partnering with the Presidential Youth Employment Services to help South Africa when it comes to AI employment revolution. Now, they're hoping to empower about 300,000 youths, and also aiming to certify, I think, 30 million youths across the continent in AI-related skills by 2025. Now, this sounds like music to my ears. Are we seeing more and more private companies coming on board and saying, look, we want to partner with the public sector and make sure that we create flourishing careers as well and decrease our unemployment stats?
Yes, absolutely, because I think we must function as an ecosystem, because the private sector can't function without the public sector and vice versa. Yeah. So we are integrated in all spheres. But I think to some benefit to the private sector is the fact that private sectors can be a little bit more agile than your public sectors, and they can be a bit more responsive in terms of how they develop the qualifications that are relevant to what the industry needs and what the industry wants. But I think the public sector is just as important in the fact that they give us the political will and they give us a political scope in terms of which we can operate. So yes, both private and public sectors are definitely geared towards ensuring that our youth of tomorrow are geared for AI readiness.
When you look at a country like South Africa, where those who don't have really do not have, and those who do have quite a bit, there is quite a big gap as well between these two kinds of groups of people. Earlier you were making mention about AI readiness amongst youth, that there are those who are in the minority who may have had access and grown up in this kind of environment as well. And then there are those who are in the majority who are perhaps even living below the poverty line. Now, if we aren't able to fix issues when it comes to power, when it comes to load shedding. How convenient would it be for somebody who's sitting right now in Pimville without lights to be able to be a part of this revolution?
It is a difficult question. As I said, it's a systemic challenge that we have, but I think that we shouldn't just pass on the liability or the obligation to government. It's in the hands of each and every single South African to make sure that the youth of tomorrow are AI ready, because the youth of tomorrow is going to lead us. And they're going to leave us behind if we leave them behind. So it is up to each and every civil person in South Africa, private or public, to make sure that that person who comes from an area where they might not have been exposed to AI or might not be exposed to any technological advancement gets that exposure and gets trained in that exposure and gets skills in that exposure, because that is the individual that's going to be the person that leads us tomorrow. So I understand the challenges that we have in terms of power and everything else, but I think we need to focus it more in terms of what we can do as South Africans to make sure that we become ready for the next generation.
It also seems that it's not only for the next generation as well, but, you know, if I also take a look at our industry in journalism as well, AI has taken over many professionals using services such as ChatGPT. Where else can we see this kind of growth?
I think, and that is where it comes to, if you're AI ready, you can see the potential of what AI can do to you and bring to you. But if you're not, you see the challenges and you see the curse that AI could bring to you. So AI is already quite advanced in terms of the educational space, because we can use AI in terms of vetting assignments, submissions, making sure that there's no plagiarism. We can even get AI to actually write assignments. That's what some students can do. But it's cross-sectoral. So the question is, where does it stop? And the problem is, unless you know where it stops, you can't function in the space. So unless you know the game, they say, you can't play it. So the challenge is to make sure that everyone is AI ready to adapt AI and make it work for them within their space and customize it within their space. Otherwise, we are going to be left behind.
And we certainly do not want to be left behind in the AI space. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Really appreciate your insights. That was Boston City Campus Director, Dr. Deonita Damons.